Welcome back to Crying at the Gym. As you've probably seen over the past few weeks, as we've rolled out these episodes, things are getting increasingly chaotic, but we're still diving in. So, welcome back. Before we move into this next episode, I know we've kind of touched on it and previewed it on socials and then in the last episode, but this one is a bit heavier of an episode than our normal episodes. We are gonna kind of dive into abusive relationships. So if that is something that is particularly triggering for you, or in any respect, just want to kind of give that disclaimer now before we dive into things. But yeah.
There will also be some light moments. We won't keep it so heavy because we just can't. It's kind of our whole thing.
Yeah.
So if you do catch us nervous laughing, please know it's just a coping mechanism and not that we don't take these matters
Yeah.
seriously, but it's truly a way that we get through all the hard things together and with you all. And if you know us personally, you absolutely know we'll talk about the most devastating thing with a smile on our face
It's
and
true.
laugh crying at the same time. But everyone's got their brand of sadness, and that's kind of ours. So
Literally. Last week we talked about when to walk away, and that was more so in the professional context. But this week we're getting a little more personal. And as I mentioned, diving into abusive relationships and kind of the decisions and actions that go hand in hand with when to walk away from an abusive or toxic relationship. So, first, before we get started, Liz, I just want to thank you for being so willing to kind of open up and be ex- especially vulnerable. I mean, we've already been vulnerable, but this is like a whole new level. So I know it's hard, but I think there's gonna be a lot of audience members who might resonate with or it might like mean a lot to. So
yeah. Well, thank you for making this safe space for me. I guess it's actually of all the things I'm like always super open about. This is one that I'm least comfortable talking about. I think it took me a long time to even recognize the situation or even like in all my reflection, thinking about it differently now than when I was there. And even for my nearest, dearest, closest people to me, this is not something I had talked about a lot with because,
no, I was thinking about that as I was preparing my questions for today. I was like, like this isn't even something I know a ton about. Of like I know vaguely,
yeah,
but it's not something we've dove into a ton.
truly.
So, I know we've talked a lot about just a lot of our life experiences professionally, but to give the audience a little bit more context before we kind of dive into this episode, could you explain to us like what the relationship looked like? What was it like in the beginning stages, and that kind of thing?
Well, I was what 22. I feel like that paints a whole picture in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right after college, I think I was in grad school when the relationship began. Looking back, obviously, really not a great choice leaving one serious relationship right into another. I think I would describe us getting together as me in one of the most vulnerable states I'd ever been in a lot of life transitions at that time at 22, having moved to New York from Florida. And it was just a person who was there at just the wrong right time, I guess. Like, I was just like, okay, just giving it a chance, right? So it started off kind of just new. I was curious. And with any relationship, like whether it be a friend, an employer, a significant other, I spend a good amount of time trying to get to know the person, and I really focus on all the good qualities somebody has. I just am so interested by those things, and not to say I block out all of the other qualities, but I try not to focus on them. So it was very much that in the beginning, trying to focus on what was good. At the time, I was not in a great mental state to begin with, so it was kind of a blur in terms of how we got together and how this person came on very hard and strong, and I was like, "Whoa, that's a lot." And I could feel myself being like, "No, danger, danger," but I was like, "I don't know, just gotta give it a chance kinda
Yeah.
thing.
What I guess how did you guys like, how did you all meet? Like, how did you become
Oh
close?
gosh.
Or I know you didn't like, I don't you don't
Yeah.
remember a ton from this time, but, like
Oh, no, I do. Anyway, it's very complicated because so I I met him through, um, girls I was friends with. They were sisters. It was their brother,
Oh.
and that actually played a role, I think, in, um, me having more trust for this person than I should have because they were my friends. So, although, you know, they probably wouldn't have painted the picture that he was a really great candidate to be my boyfriend, um, at the time, but it was it was just like, how bad could it be? It's their brother.
Yeah,
So, that's how
automatically
we
trusting
met.
someone.
Yeah,
Oh.
and at the time, he lived in Florida, I lived in New York City, and when I say came on hard and fast, was like, "Oh, I'm moving to New York," and da da, and I was like, "Well, don't move here for me." Like, "What?
Mhm.
We've only been dating a little while, and that's crazy. Please don't." And then moved there, wanted to live together, and I just from then on, just kinda started going through motions that I was not ready for, back to back to back.
So, you mentioned that you had just gotten out of a serious relationship. Could you kind of describe, like, the mental state you were in, when you and this person met?
Yeah, I was heartbroken from the relationship prior to, and I was also a very busy girly. I was 22, I was in New York City. I had a full-time job, a really good job. My first big girl job. I was working like 65 hours a week and finishing grad school. So I had such minimal amounts of time. Yeah, being so busy all the time, not having a lot of time. And at that age, although I was beyond my years, still not like I wasn't like journaling. I wasn't doing all these things for my mental health to know how to process these big things, and how could you don't have those tools sometimes, like, sometimes at 22, sometimes at 52, like, it
Mhm.
I didn't have them at the time, so I just went from the first my first love relationship into this experience, and I was also not experienced with people who, um, are, like, preying on people like that, like, are very methodical about getting, um about
Like, getting the like, finding vulnerable people? Is that or
I'm, like, struggling with, like, terminology of, like,
yeah,
the abuser and a victim, like, I wasn't experienced with people who wanted control over another person in a relationship. I hadn't had any, like, abusive, if you could even characterize it that way, relationships. Like, I didn't recognize what was happening. Even if I was educated on the fact that that exists, I was definitely not aware that it was happening, like, getting me isolated, coming on really fast and really strong, love bombing, all of that. I was just like, "Oh, this person's really interested in me. Wow, that's nice." Like, I can't say that I love them quite yet. It's, like, so
mhm,
early, but it was so much so fast, and I was just like, I think given going through a heartbreak and being in that period of my life, just kind of like deer in headlights, like this was coming at me really fast and going through motions
mhm.
and like ultimately that person kind of getting a grasp on me for, like grew on me. And then I was like, no, I like learned to love them and like care for them and then feel like I owed them something, I guess.
You talked a lot about him coming hard and fast and strong. Could you kinda give us a timeline from, like, when you all met to, like, when you moved to New York City to when he decided to move to New York City to, like, when you guys got married?
I I li I lived in New York City already. I met this person when they were visiting, and I don't know when he moved, but I know he proposed after 6 months of dating. Yeah, and I was like and my response was he was like, "W Will you marry me?" And I was like, "Well, not now, but yeah, eventually." So we took that as a proposal, um, and we were engaged for, like, 2.5 years because I was like, "That was nuts." Like, I did have some wherewithal still to be like, that was too soon. I
Mhm.
don't know. He moved within that same first year. We moved in together, and he did nothing but drag me down while I lived there. Like, me I had been on a track of, like, finishing grad school, getting a good job, starting my career, and, establishing community and relationships in New York City, loving it there, always wanting to move back there, um, from when I had lived in Florida, and I he just totally disrupted all of that, and I think, like, afterwards, I always had, like, big regrets about that. I don't now, but I was like, he definitely got me in a, metaphorical chokehold to,
Yeah.
like, follow him wherever he would go because he had a business in Florida. He didn't really do much to make it work in New York while he was there. He was just, like, waiting around for me all the time, and like I said, I worked, like, 65 hours a week. I was still in grad school. I had no time, definitely no money, and I just was, like, trying to get by, as you do,
Yeah.
as a young 20-something living in New York.
I bet.
Um, but eventually he got me to move to Florida after maybe a year of living in New York together, and so then it got much worse in terms of, like, being isolated
Mhm.
and kinda in too deep at that point, it felt
Yeah.
like.
So obviously, like, hindsight's 2020. What were some of the things at the beginning of your relationship that you, like, made you drawn to this person?
That's a really good question. Like, um,
'Cause I feel like that kinda lends into, like, how people end up in these relationships and then feel like they're stuck because 'cause they're like, "No, I did love this person." Um,
yeah, I'm not
so
even sure if it was, like, his individual qualities or if it was just something I was wanting or needing at the time.
Oh.
I don't know that I haven't really done deep work on that other than knowing that I was in no place to make any judgment call on being with someone or giving. I didn't know what it meant to, like, give my heart to someone, like, and what all that was gonna be, and I didn't know it was normal or not normal in terms of love or relationships. Um, I liked I liked someone prioritizing me at first. I liked somebody who was willing to make sacrifices for me or what appeared to be sacrifices for me. Except now I feel like it was just all part of a master plan. Um, and that felt nice because I was like, oh, like he's willing to always be around and follow me anywhere I go. Which now is kind of like I see it differently, obviously.
Yeah.
But those are just like core things that I like in a
Mhm.
relation I'd want in a relationship or, um, yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, and he was handsome. I don't know, he wasn't like he was nice looking. I wasn't, like, not attracted
Yeah.
to him. Um, I don't know.
Yeah. So what are the things then that were like you kinda, like, touched on this a little bit, but, like, in hindsight, obviously, what were the red flags that you were like, "I should have never ended up in the situation that I did?" And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's, like, I don't know, but
No,
what are
it's hard to even characterize, like, when you introed and when we talked about, like, "Oh, we're gonna talk about an abusive relationship," it's hard for me to even characterize it still as that because I'm like, "No, like, it was just like, he had issues, we were young, like, we both were not perfect." When I would see these red flags, like, being someone who's super empathetic, I always am like, "Oh my goodness, I wonder what possesses someone to do that, like, he must be so broken and hurt inside," and, like, one thing about me is that it's really hard for me to watch people not be their best selves. Like when I can see so much of the good, it's hard for me not just like to a point where I take it on as my assignment to try to like bring out the best in them and be like, no, like that's just something you need to work through. But like all these good qualities, like I focus so much on that where it's, like, unhealthy, where I start making it my own task to buffer those character flaws or,
Yeah.
things that they need to work on.
So when you say buffer,
Mm.
um, do you mean buffer to, like, the people around you and your loved ones around you, or, like, buffer in the relationship?
Yes, to
Can
all.
okay, okay.
Yeah, so, like, in several of my relationships, I feel like I took on this role as being like a control, right? Like I'm like something in place to make sure that like nobody sees the darkness or the bad parts of that person. Like I'm very protective in
Mhm.
that way. Cause I'm like, no, I think everyone deserves to see the best side of you. And sometimes like that meant for me, especially when I was younger and taking that on as my own to like mediate that or like if family was around. I remember like this was something that was really hard to deal with. I actually felt horribly after when I was reflecting on this relationship, but my family would come visit and like he would just have all these like complaints and like restrictions and like rules and like things that he didn't. He's like, well, I don't want this and and I don't want them to invite blah blah blah. And I'm like, because we were like host Christmas,
Okay,
and
yeah.
so like planning a family event, but being under his terms, but I'm welcoming my family in, and the way my family goes is we welcome everyone with love, and we don't have all these like criteria
Yeah.
and rigid like rules around how the day or evening is going to go. And he would put that on me and I would disagree, but then I would be like, nobody nobody mind what's going on over there. Like I would try to make sure nobody would see the tension because one, they'd be pissed off. And I'd be like caught between like defending him or fearful that like I didn't defend him or like betraying my family and I don't want to be in that position. I also know that if they really knew what was going on, it would hurt them too. So I was like, nothing to see, nothing here.
Looking back, do you think, um especially I know, like, you and your sisters are close, do you think or have you had conversations with them since where you realized that they actually, like, knew what was going on?
What's interesting is like, as I was studying the archives, aka my past journals, the saddest books I've ever read,
I was like, "What archives?"
the archives, the saddest book I ever read, when we talked about my divorce journal, like,
Yeah.
so when we were, um, when I decided to separate from this person, I went to therapy and I started journaling. And in the journal, I do have an entry like right around the time I maybe moved out of the house or when I told one of my sisters. And um, remember because I wrote it down, she was like very supportive of me leaving him. I remember being very apologetic of like my nephews having a relationship with this person and feeling, I was like feeling responsible for letting someone in the family that wasn't gonna be there forever, and she was like, "You know what? No, I support you completely," and she's like, "It makes a lot of sense now because I would be so confused, like, when we would come and you just seem so, like, uptight, and that's not who I know you to be." And, like, friends, family, like, the part that kinda broke me the most was, like, feeling like how much it took away from the people I loved to try to preserve that relationship as long as I did, and not
Mhm.
being myself for that long was really tough, and yeah.
Yeah. So at what point, I know this is something you still, like, kinda struggle with, but at what point did you start to kinda realize, and kind of define this relationship as abusive? Like, what based on your experience, like, what aspects of that relationship were abusive, if that makes sense?
Um, I don't think like I said, still, it's hard for me to say, except I would say, like, when I started documenting everything in my journal and going to therapy, so telling someone just facts and writing down facts about, like, an event or an experience or a feeling, and then going back and reading it, I was like I did the thing where I pretend it's like I'm your friend reading the thing, and I'm
Ah,
like,
yeah.
girl, oh,
Help her.
girl." And I was like, "Are you okay?" Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, "That's not okay. That is not normal. Not just not normal, it's mean. That's
No.
like someone is hurting you." Actually, here on these 2 pages, if I may. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so I remember listing just, like, some things that really stood out for me over the years, and, um, not just, like, day-to-day stuff, just, like,
Big event?
memorable moments I never forgave myself for being ruined because of my relationship at the time. This was like, I don't know, years ago. So my birthdays, like every time it was my birthday, hated anyone giving me any attention. Like we should do something intimate or small or totally controlled by this person,
Okay. Like
like
isolating?
thinking that like it's just too much attention for me to have. Like people would, reach out to me that was not on this person's approved list of people to like communicate and celebrate me in that way. Like friendships alone, there were only certain people this person even wanted around. Like, and if he didn't and we went to like an event for this person, he made me miserable. One of my best friend's weddings, I was in the wedding. I like all the pictures from that wedding, my eyes are like, because like w- just gave me hell the whole time to the place. Also, it was like one of those weddings you sit at the bridal party table.
Okay,
I was a
yeah.
groom's lady, actually, but so he had to sit at a table with other people, like right there, whatever. But we weren't sitting together, so it became this like the whole day and evening became about him and how disrespectful that was. And I probably slept with all the guys there, like accusing me of crazy things. Like, I was just like, what? Like, actually,
Yeah.
what? Or like, I would go to the bathroom just to like use the bathroom. And this was like he would pretend it was like silly or like a joke, but he would like bang on the door like abruptly. And then like, on like just your house bathroom door, you can kind of like pop the lock with like a bobby pin. He would just do that and come in. Like, I'm like, what do you think I'm doing in here? And also, whatever you're gonna see, that's that's on you. Like, change my fucking tampon, bro. Like, I'm not in here talking to dudes. Like, it was like that, like accusing me
Yeah.
of doing things like that. Every bachelorette party I went on was like an accusation. I was just running the streets like a big hoe, like to the point where like he pretended to forget to pick me up from the airport, like when I came back from one and wouldn't talk. He like if I went on a trip like that, he wouldn't talk to me the whole time. He'd be like, "You're really selfish for doing this." And like, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and then there were some like bigger, scarier type of things that are just like I think I kind of blacked out for a long time, like, whether it be, like, catching him, like, in a moment of infidelity, like, sexting someone whose number was saved as someone else's, like, that was, like, 6 months into marriage, if that, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh." So, like, I knew for a long time I need to be out of this, but because I was already under such a
Yeah.
tight hold, it just got harder and harder to leave, like, I knew for a long time, like, "This is not okay, it's not safe, but how do I get out?"
Yeah. Do you think that's why a lot of people struggle in these relationships?
Absolutely. It's that, and it's like, we're so programmed to cling on to familiarity, like, even if the what's familiar is not good or healthy, it still feels less scary than change,
Mhm.
and it was like, "Well, what will I do?"
Yeah, and it sounds
Um,
like it's not like anything happened overnight, like, it was just, like, a gradual, like,
it was a slow burn, but it was
slow burn in not a good way.
but, like yeah, with, like, bits of, like, sprinkles of dynamite here and there, like, "Ah!" Like, that was like, some things were so, like, unfortunate, like, the things that were long-term pretty bad and I put together later on was one thing, was enough to, like, should be out of the relationship, but it unfortunately, I feel like I had to wait until it was just, like, so undeniable.
A lot of people who either are on the outside or have never, like, been involved in one of these relationships don't really understand why, the victim per se, I know you struggle with that those terminologies, but, why the victim doesn't just leave. I think they ask a lot like, "Well, why don't you just leave?" Like, blah, 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 and it's not that easy, and a lot of the things you've touched on, like, demonstrate why it's not that easy. But could you kinda comment on that?
I think for me, and for a lot of people, from what I've read anyway, especially someone who is known for being, like, take no shit or, like, really independent, like, I don't know, like, it just you don't it doesn't, like, align with my identity to be, like, captive of someone, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it was really hard for me to see well, first, obviously see that that was what was going on, or that it was that unhealthy, and then I was so embarrassed about it, like, I was like, I and because I did unfortunately love this person, even if it was, like, not real, like, deep love, and it was kinda like trauma love, I don't know. I also felt protective of them, and so the combination of being like, I think it'd be humiliating or I didn't want, people who cared for me to feel heartbroken over it either. Um, I kinda kept it to myself, and I was like, "No, I can manage this, I can figure out what to do."
Mhm.
So, I think for a lot of people, it's probably, recognizing that that is actually the situation, and then, it was just hard to admit to myself and others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there someone you, like, confided in to begin with? Or, like
Yeah, my best friend had moved back to Florida. So it went like we were in New York City, then we moved back to Florida, and like, although I'm partly from Florida, a lot of the people had like moved away, so I didn't have a lot of people. Actually, I joined CrossFit. That's what this is about. I was like, something happened. I like got community somehow. Truly,
Oh,
this is the first time CrossFit saved my life because we
I
lived
remember you
across
saying
the
that, yeah,
street
sorry.
from a CrossFit gym. Like we
Yeah,
bought a house and literally it was just like a sign that said like CrossFit this way. I was like, I've got something I need to be able to do besides wake up and go to work and blah blah blah. And so I went and I met people. He didn't love that either. Just a shocker.
shocker.
um, but I was like feeling myself. I always knew it was wrong that I always felt most myself when I wasn't around him. And I was like, it's not okay. But yeah, and then maybe a couple years later, my best friend moved back from New York as well, and she joined my CrossFit gym. This was a different gym, but um, and this was at a very pivotal moment in my relationship, and like just happenstance that she moved at that time. So it was kind of also like a a godsend, if you will.
Yeah.
But I confided in her and she's extremely objective. She's extremely reasonable. She knew the person and, also has a lot of empathy and understanding. And I wouldn't say that she was like I think we'll get to an episode on like advice and like when and who to get it from or how to give it. But she's always been very like Ins instead of being like, "You should do this," she just, like, asked questions that, like, I needed to answer. It also helps that she's a therapist for a living. But, when she would ask these questions, I just was like there were questions I never wanted to ask myself,
Oh, yeah.
and she probably recommended I go to therapy, and I did, and then I confided in my therapist and my journal. Yep.
We love a
My other
journal.
bestie.
Getting back to the central theme of today. Um, Obviously, all these things happened. It was a long-term relationship. You were invested. You bought a house together. You were together for a while. You were married. What eventually led to you making the decision to leave?
Yeah, I think when there was a period where things seemed to be getting easier, and that's only because I had learned how to behave myself. I don't know, it sounds really messed up, but it was like I learned how to, like, not stir the pot so much, um, and when I had community, I was like, "Oh, well, this is g at least I, like, have happiness here, and then this is here," and kinda compartmentalized our issues, but when we started to try to have kids, like, that was important for both of us, we wanted to have children, um and I did get pregnant and I did lose the baby, but it was like that whole experience was very eye-opening in terms of how the rest of my life would go. I like literally um we were both very happy and excited when I did become pregnant And then when things kinda took a turn, and I was, driving myself to the hospital and he didn't show up, like, I was like, "Okay." I
This
don't
is
I don't
yeah.
know what's more rock bottom than, like, being like, "Can you show up?" I'm scared, like, I'm in the
Yeah.
hospital with our baby, and he would not come in, like, he would not show up. He kept making weird excuses for why he couldn't get there. I had to call my mom to come be with me, 'cause I was there for several hours, um, and I just remember thinking, like, I had some shame around, like, allowing myself to be in a relationship like that, and I was like, "I can live with that and I can repair that," but I could not live with bringing a child into that, like,
Mm.
that would be someone's father, like, I I I'm like, "That's on me, I can't." I
Yeah.
was like, I can't do that," and so, we'll unpack one day why I can't do it just for me, because I was like, "No, this is for, like, my children," like,
Yeah.
that was, like, the moment I was like, "I don't I can't subject another being to this,
Yeah.
especially, like, an innocent child."
Is it at this point you made the decision to officially leave, or
I think that's when I started to be, like, just more aware and trying to feed myself more instead of the relationship. I realized I hadn't really been, other than CrossFit, I hadn't really been giving anything to myself, like, I was like, "We're learning what is not working, but what do you want? Like,
yeah.
do you want to be in this relationship? Do you"
Is that what you asked yourself? Or
Yes,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm um, like, what would feel good? Like, what is right? And, like, um trying to still keep the peace, but not do everything for this person and our relationship. So then things got more difficult because I wasn't being so, like, attentive and accommodating to that person's needs. I started, heaven forbid, a girl take care of herself, and, like, seeing me, like, thrive in more independence and, like, just focusing on myself more, whether it be through fitness or hanging out with friends more often. He hated that, obviously, and kind of kept throwing in my face like, "You've been different ever since you lost the baby." And I really hated the way he said that. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But it just, like, made me just, like, further and further, like, I can't, I couldn't. I was like, I can't go any longer like this. So I suggested, I probably started going to therapy within that year,
Okay.
and told and kinda gave I laid it all out for him, like, "Look, these are things that have happened and are absolutely unacceptable in our relationship." Like, I was starting to feel empowered. Honestly, it probably was, like, CrossFit did play a role in that. Like, I had,
Just building your confidence back,
yeah,
kind
just,
of, yeah.
like, feeling
Finding
good every day and, like, recognizing myself,
yeah.
and even though I didn't immediately have deep, meaningful connections with people there were, like, people who are empowering you, and, like, I really thrived in that community, as we both do. Um, so it kinda, like, yeah, so then I, like, took it to him, like, I can't do this anymore, like, if we don't do some, like, I suggested couples therapy and just other things we could do to try to make things better. He fully rejected it. He was like, "That's stupid. I don't wanna do that. That's because your best friend's a therapist. Fuck that." Like, just, like, I was like, "This is going well." And really, like, when you start to pull away, like, whether it even be in, like, when you start to reject, like, the abuse, whether it be in a work environment or a relationship or any other setting, it will aggravate the person, and then it will only reinforce the reasons to leave. And so that's kinda how I felt it went. It got worse, and then it got, like, a little scary because it got worse, and I was, like, empowered, but also still like, I don't know how far this person will
Yeah.
go." And I'll say, like, I was um, not it's probably why it's hard for me to not characterize it as abusive, because it wasn't, like, physical in the sense that, like, I was being, like, hit or anything, um, but the threat was always that,
So much more
there's, like,
multifaceted
yeah,
to
there were
yeah.
threats over there, or, like, it was physical in some ways, but not like, I don't know how you see in movies, like, people being beat on, and some people who
Yeah.
unfortunately endure that.
You make it sound so easy to, like, go to your partner
This
and
was
be
years
like
ago.
but go to your partner and be like, "I'm not happy XYZ." How did you navigate that conversation? Because I feel like that's so tough.
I wrote it down.
Love.
I wrote a letter to him. I wanted to write it down, one, so that my words weren't twisted or contorted, and I wanted to be completely honest. I wanted him to have time to read it and then talk about it. So I told him, like, I have this letter for you. I want you to read it, and then I want to talk about it and like how to move forward. Um, it didn't go well. Like, um, but then I think as the reality set in of that I should be taken seriously about it, because I was like, um, there was a point where I was drifting further and further, and ultimately was like, "Hey, I'm gonna like, I don't know, like this is it, or like move out or something." And I don't remember exactly like the timeline of things, but
Yeah.
once I was gone, meaning like I think I just like moved out of my house with like a Lululemon bag to my mom's, which was also rock bottom. No offense. Like it was really,
Yeah.
thank goodness I had somewhere to go, but it was like I'm just going to live at my mom's with a bag of clothes. They didn't even have Wi-Fi. Anyway, it was like, um, he started to like overcorrect, but like creepy, like show up places. Like I did a competition and he just showed up randomly, like a 4 hour away competition just like popped up like I came to support you, and I was like, whoa, I told you I didn't want to be here and you never supported me for any of these things. And stuff like that would happen um when we already were apart. So it was very hard. It was at that point I was set in my decision, but I still felt so badly because I hate to see someone I love struggle, and he was struggling, and I just wanted nothing more than to be like, Uh, no one's gonna take care of him. Sounds like crazy, but, um, it was long and drawn out and difficult, and so I just kept journaling about it, honestly, and I would read those pages back to myself, like, after a couple weeks and be like, "No," like, 'cause he would I would start to be like, "Am I making the right decision? Like,
Yeah.
was I just, like, not understanding enough? Like, could it be better?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, did you ask for a divorce or did he?
I did. Yeah. Um, this took forever. Like,
Yeah.
he was in denial about it for a long time, so much that we'd been separated and I lived out of the house for quite some time. And I remember getting a call from like a therapist to do like a couple session. I was like, I mean, I'm happy to sit down and have a conversation, like if it's helpful for him with you guys. And she's like, "Oh, he told me you guys are just discussing maybe separating." I was like, "No, we've been separated a while." Like, we did ultimately see a counselor who like then and we unhashed the like incident with the hospital and all. And even in that moment, I think that for me, I was like, I can't do anything to like help or fix or save this person. Like he still denied like true facts in this like counseling session where she was just like, "Oh, well, where were you?" And he's like, "I was at work. I couldn't leave, or I left right away." And she's like, "How far do you work?" And he's like, 20 minutes away. She's like, "Well, how long was she in the hospital?" And he's just like, it wasn't that long. It was like an hour." I was like, "I was in the hospital for like 6 hours. I was in the hospital a long time, and it was 20 minutes away from where you were." Like, maybe longer. I might have been there like 8 hours. But I was like, just watching that like level of denial was like, you can't work with that,
Yeah.
like, and it's sad, like, I
Mhm.
still, like, I don't want anyone to be in pain, like, I don't know, like,
Mhm.
even people who have hurt me, I'm just like, I don't know, but that was, like,
Yeah.
some of the efforts there at the end.
Obviously, like, leaving the relationship and, making the decision to get a divorce and, like, even, like, that finalizing isn't the end of your trauma and, like, your journey. And you touched on like therapy, journaling, CrossFit, but what kind of steps did you take to heal and start your healing journey and really get your like sense of identity back?
Yeah, so uh for the first time, like, when I left that relationship, being able to focus on myself was refreshing, but also excruciating because it's like not easy, but it's obvious when you're focusing on like someone else's behavior or a relationship. But when you're like looking inward and being like before when you said what attracted you to that person in the first place, I was like, how did we get here? Like it was so surprising to me. I was in that situation. It still is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe that was real. Um, and so kind of like peeling back my own layers of like, I mean, those are like kind of core years too, like 22 to 28. It's like you're doing a lot of growing up in that time. And so it was kind of like I missed some of that, like based on just trying to navigate the relationship. But one of my therapists, this is actually more recently, but asked me to this was so cruel, asked me to write a letter to, like, little Liz. Every time I read it, it still, like, applies to every, um, like, every relationship I've been in or everything that wasn't for me, and so that was something that was painful to do, but very helpful. I guess that is kind of journaling, but it was, like, prompted by my therapist to do the work to understand what were my, like, core desires and my core fears, I guess, and, I was just I was surprised by the results.
Yeah.
Like, you think you know yourself, and then you, do that, and you're like, "Really?" And some of it is, like, because it's so vulnerable, like, you're
Yeah.
like, "No, I'm not afraid I don't fear abandonment. Why what? I'm so good on my own. Why would I
Yeah.
care about that?" But that is something but it helps, like, when going into new relationships, I'd like to think they've gotten better each time. Like, um, I don't know, like your standard or the bar will change all the time. Obviously, it was very low. Or I didn't really have one. Yeah, that was the thing. I was just like, okay, just so indifferent to everything. Um, Afterwards, like doing work to be like, well, this is what I want and need in a relationship. It's still hard for me to I can now say what I want and need, but it's still hard for me when I'm not getting it to be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, then it's not for me." Like, "Well, maybe."
For someone listening who this might particularly resonate with, and who might be feeling like stuck or unsure if they're in such a relationship, what advice or what would you tell them?
I would say if it's safe to write it down, because I also remember being like, "Where am I gonna keep this thing?" I had to keep it at work, like, locked up because I was worried he would see it. But it does help, writing down or you can lock a note in your phone or something of just, like, real events and feelings that you have so that if someone should try to gaslight you or convince you otherwise, you like, that's the only way that I was able to hear myself and see the situation for what it was. Um, Talk to yourself like you would a friend. Like, would you want your sister, your friend to go through something like that? And what would you say to them? And then, like, if you're not safe, you gotta leave. Like, that's that's the ultimate deal breaker, right? And safety is there's physical safety, there's mental safety, but all of those things, like, you have to be safe in every way to stay. So,
So if for someone who's also listening, but maybe has a friend or a family member dealing with an abusive relationship or who's in an abusive relationship, what kind of would you tell that friend or family member to lend support to that person?
oh man, not qualified to say.
Yeah,
No.
sorry.
No.
Getting
I'm like,
getting deep.
what helped for me was um it was never helpful when people would be like, "That's bad." Like, it makes it scarier. It was more helpful like I said, when my friend would just, like, ask gentle questions that were more focused on me and not trying to attack the other person because your friend or whoever's going through that, like, they love that person or they have a connection to that person or they're attaching their self-worth to that person. It's gonna be hard if you just attack their partner to get through to them because they're so used to their partner saying, "Everyone is lying to you about me." So, if you just focus it on that person who's going through it, like, "Hey, like, when do you feel most yourself? Like, what lights you up? What makes you feel happy? Like, do you wanna do something?" And just kinda get, like, I don't know, get the focus on them
Yeah.
and how they can move to living a happier life, like, hoping that they kind of arrive to that on their own or giving gentle
Yeah.
suggestions if it's welcome, but it's just not gonna be helpful to, like, attack the other person because a lot of times they're protecting them too, or they're afraid of the other person should they find out other people know.
Yeah. No. No,
Yeah.
I think that was really good. That's really good advice. So, looking back, what would you tell like 22-year-old or 25-year-old Liz who was in this situation?
Mm, I would tell her that other people's failures are not your own. I would tell
Oh,
her that your worthiness is not dependent on someone else's willingness to change or treat you right. Your self-worth is not determined by how somebody treats you.
yeah. Oh,
I could read my whole letter to little Liz and we can all just sob together. Something that I would say always comforts me when I'm making a decision to part ways, whether it be a relationship or a job, um, is just what's meant for you will always find you, right? Like,
so
like
cliche, but
it's
yes.
so no, it's like so real. Like everything that's supposed to be happening and is gonna happen. Like, and everything that's not meant for you is gonna go away. Like the things like we try to like it's
You know,
literally like surrender to the universe.
I'm not.
There was no room for humor here. Gosh, this is so serious.
Ah.
Trauma makes you funnier. We'll leave on that note.
There's what?
One good thing worth it.
Oh, man. If there's anyone listening who this like resonates deeply with, I think I mentioned in the beginning, but we're gonna have some resources in the description. And yeah.
You can message any feedback
Yeah.
too. Um, and reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you at
Yeah.
We Are Crying at the Gym and
Leave us a
or
voice note.
a voice note, which is linked in our profile. Or you can email us podcast@cryingatthegym.com.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for
We'll try
listening.
to keep it on a lighter note next
Yeah.
time, but we have to talk about the heavy stuff. It's kind of what we do.
Come,
Now
it's
we must
all
last
things
the
to
rest
cry
of the day.
about. Yeah. But in the meantime, you'll find us crying at the gym.
Bye.